yesterday at the end of my show, I said, I don't know what's going to happen with this plane crash, this plane down. There's lots of speculation, and I'm going to show you some of the speculation. And Trudeau, this is yesterday morning, this is January 8th, today is the 9th, and CBC News reports 138 passengers on flight that crashed in Iran were headed for Canada, and that's according to Trudeau. This is posted yesterday at 7:40 a.m. And not that it's important to note, but it is important to note, right? The faster people respond to things, the better, in my opinion. So the fact that people are on it and have a response and not waiting and waiting and waiting. Trudeau didn't address everybody until 4:22. Trump addressed the nation yesterday at 11 a.m., 11:30, I guess he got on. He got in front of the podium. That was interesting to watch. He was addressing the United States with regard to the attack by Iran on the bases. And he said, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. It was interesting to watch. You should watch it. And I'll put a link in the description. But here is Justin Trudeau and what he says. Now, he spends the first 4 minutes of his address talking about the victims of the airplane crash in Iran. He doesn't condemn Iran. He doesn't talk about any kind of possible cause or anything to that effect. He just focuses on how sad a day and everybody's mourning, etc. And he spends about a minute on the Iranian attack and the political fallout there. Here we go. We'll listen.
This somber day comes in the wake of deeply concerning events in Iraq. Canada condemns the missile attacks launched by Iran last night. I am relieved, as are all Canadians, that all personnel deployed in Iraq are safe. I'd like to take a moment to thank once again the women and men in uniform who have worked hard with our allies to stabilize Iraq and counter Daesh. Their mission is important, and we can all be proud of their work. Je vous assure que nous prenons toutes les précautions.
Sorry about that. It's interesting that he calls them Daesh and not ISIS sometimes. Barack Obama did that a lot too. I don't know why. I know that the two are interchangeable, but why not just use one, like branding, right? Why be confusing about it? So that's Trudeau talking about the Iranian stuff. We're disappointed, Here's the Independent in the United Kingdom saying Iran plane crash may have been shoot-down event, aviation experts say. Trudeau goes on, he started speaking French and I forgot about the French part, but he goes on here to say that Iran and Ukraine are going to investigate this and get to the bottom of this. But here's the first Iran plane crash may have been a shoot-down event. There's a New York Times article as well that is talking about the same. Here is a Twitter account, and who knows? I don't know if this is legitimate, but I've seen a lot of different Twitter accounts coming up with the same pictures of wings, saying like this is evidence of a missile, and there's people saying these are air-to-surface missiles or a SAM fragment consistent with Tor M1, and I think those are. I don't know those short. I am not a gun guy, right? But from the limited reading I've been doing, these are surface-to-air missiles or anti-aircraft missiles. So who knows? I hope we get to the bottom of it. Here's the Globe and Mail saying Canada, Iran hold rare call as plane crash investigations release initial findings. This was released 3 hours ago on January 9th. So sometime in the morning, 9 o'clock. Foreign Minister François-Philippe Champagne, has held a rare phone conversation with his Iranian counterpart a day after a Ukrainian international airlines plane crashed near Tehran, with 63 Canadians on board, Iranian media said. The details of the call were not known, but Mr. Champagne was expected to press Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif to allow Canadian officials to take part in the investigation of what happened to UIA Flight 752, which caught fire and fell from the sky shortly after taking off from Imam Khomeini International Airport early Wednesday, killing all 176 people on board. The call came as Iranian investigators announced their initial finding that the plane caught fire due to a technical failure and was trying to return to the airport when it crashed. However, Iran has yet to give foreign investigators access to the so-called black boxes, which contain data and cockpit communications that were recovered from the scene of the disaster, and the initial findings were unlikely to end calls for Iran to allow allow international teams to access the evidence. The report said both of the plane's black boxes had been recovered, though they had been damaged and some parts of the memory had been lost. The report also ruled out laser or electromagnetic interference as causes of the crash. A team from Ukraine, which has opened a criminal investigation into the crash, arrived in Tehran on Thursday and was waiting for permission to access the site. Quote, a strike by missile, possibly a Tor missile system, we find out what this is among the main theories as information has surfaced on the internet about elements of a missile being found near the crash site, he said. A Tor missile is a Soviet-made anti-aircraft weapon known to be in the Iranian arsenal. Mr. Danilov did not say where on the internet he had seen the Tor missile theory. Oh, well, here it is. There you go. Back to this. Mohammed Islami, excuse me if I've got that wrong, Iran's Minister of Road and Urban Development, called for an end to speculation that the disaster, which occurred hours after Iran fired a barrage of ballistic missiles at a U.S. military target in Iraq, was the result of military action that night. Quote, there are rumors that a terrorist attack, explosion, or shooting at the plane may have caused the incident, but they are not true. Technical failure has been the cause of the incident, Mr. Islami told reporters in Tehran. Had the rumors been true, the plane must have exploded up in the air, but that has not happened because the plane caught fire due to technical failure that first caused this communication and control system to stop working and subsequently resulted in a crash. Iranian news media have reportedly pointed to the fact that Boeing 737-800 is part of the same aircraft family as the Boeing 737 MAX, an aircraft that has been grounded worldwide since March after 2 deadly accidents. The Boeing 737-800 is an older model. Unlike the MAX, which has problems with flight control system, the 737-800 has been seen as a reliable workhorse. Iran has said it will not allow the U.S. participation in the investigation and will not hand the black boxes over to Boeing. Not since the Air India disaster of 1985, when 280 Canadians were among the 329 killed, have so many Canadians lost their lives in an aviation disaster. So, and then the rest of this article just kind of goes over the rest of the history of what's happened up to now. So it's interesting what's going on, right? Trudeau's also been tweeting a bunch since getting back from vacation and having some private meetings, I guess. He was speaking with King Abdullah, speaking with, who is this? Angela Merkel, and all of these. He's called a bunch of the G7 leaders. He spoke with Trump too, and he tweeted about it. So I just wanted to show you that this is something that's happening. He's tweeting about it. And at the same time, there was a shooting in Ottawa. And yesterday, this happened kind of as I was building my show, and I didn't know, I hadn't heard much about it until after I finished my show. So it's interesting stuff. Here it is. Shooting in Ottawa leaves 1 dead and 3 in serious condition. Now, I'm going to just pause and jump back quickly to the Iranian stuff. I don't want to go too deep into commenting on this at this point in time. I hope it was an accident, right? I hope that I hope it wasn't shot down, because that would be awful. That would be incredibly a terrifying way to die. That would just be, I couldn't imagine a worse way. And so I hope that, I mean, either way, no matter how they died, I hope it wasn't through malicious military action. I hope that's terrible. That's terrible, and that's something that shouldn't happen. And if it did happen that way, then, well, I mean, next steps are who knows? So I don't know where this is going to go. This is still very much an open story. So I just wanted to say that I'm just trying to keep you up to date and not necessarily giving a lot of color to this one, because who knows, right? How horrible, how horrific, how awful. Okay, moving on. This is also horrific and awful. Shooting in Ottawa leaves 1 dead, 3 in serious condition. Ottawa police say an 18-year-old was killed and 3 other young people seriously injured in a shooting in downtown Ottawa Wednesday morning in an apartment rented out through Airbnb. Acting Inspector Francois Dost, excuse me if I've got that wrong, said at the scene that police believe the attack was targeted and that there is no active shooter in the city, contrary to an immediate warning from the Parliamentary Protective Service, which guards nearby Parliament Hill. But the police had nobody in custody, nor even a description of the person they were looking for. According to a statement released late in the morning, it said investigators were satisfied there was no national security element to the incident. No problems, everyone. It's just a targeted shooting. It couldn't have been you, because you won't be targeted. It's just these ne'er-do-wells. Interesting. Back to the article. Officers were called to a building on Gilmore Street in Ottawa's Centretown neighborhood at about 7:30 Wednesday morning amid reports of multiple gunshots. The Ottawa Paramedic Service reported that 1 person was pronounced dead at the scene and 3 others were taken to hospital in serious condition with gunshot wounds. The teenager who died was identified late in the day as Manyok Akol. Excuse me if I've got that wrong. The other victims are all male, aged 20, 19, and 15, police say. Mark Ignatieff lives nearby and said the home where the shooting took place is an Airbnb with units on 2 floors. Ignatieff said the shooting was in the first floor unit. And I scroll down just a little bit. Casey Griffiths, who lives next door to the house where the shooting occurred, said she woke up to find heavily armed police surrounding the building. She says she watched as police thoroughly searched the residence before 2 young people were taken away on stretchers. Paramedics were working on a third person in the backyard, she added. They were both people I've never seen before, said Griffiths, who admitted to having been shaken by the shooting. Quote, I'm very local here. I know my neighbors. I've never seen these people in my life. Griffiths, who suspected the shooting was gang-related, said the street was previously rocked by a shooting last May. Police at the time reported that a car had been struck by bullets, but there were no injuries. So, concerning, right? And Justin Trudeau thought it was concerning enough to comment on via Twitter, He says, quote, I've spoken with at Jim Watson Ottawa about this morning's shooting in Ottawa and the ongoing investigation. My heart goes out to everyone affected, and I hope all those injured have a speedy recovery. I'd also like to thank the Ottawa police and paramedics for acting so quickly. So, not a national security event, nothing to see here. It was a targeted shooting, citizen. These things happen daily, right? In present day Canada anyway. So, weird that the Prime Minister weighed in on that with so many other things happening, right? Weird, just a little weird. And here's the last story for this morning. Charest advising Huawei in Meng Wanzhou case and on 5G networks. Now, just before I get into this, I want to point out what a disaster this article would have been for me to read about a year ago. I would have slaughtered all these names, but I know all these names now. I don't think I did Charest any service, but right? Huawei, Meng Wanzhou. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Moving on. Former Quebec Premier Jean Charest, who is contemplating a run for the Conservative Party leadership, has been acting as a consultant to Huawei Technologies Company Limited in the Meng Wanzhou extradition case and the tech giant's efforts to participate in Canada's 5G wireless networks, a source says. Mr. Charest is part of a team at the law firm of McCarthy Theroux, including former Privy Council clerk Wayne Woothers, and Huawei retained in the summer to offer strategic advice. A source said that Mr. Charest and Mr. Woothers are providing strategic advice to Huawei. This includes intelligence and policy advice on understanding the extradition process facing Ms. Meng, the chief financial officer and daughter of company founder Ren Zhengfei. Excuse me if I've got that wrong. They are also advising Huawei as it seeks approval to sell equipment for the construction of Canada's 5G networks. The federal government is conducting a cybersecurity review to determine whether Canada should bar the Chinese high-tech firm from participating in the next generation of wireless technology, as the United States and Australia have. The Globe and Mail is not identifying the source because they are not authorized to speak publicly on the matter. A request to Mr. Charest for comment was referred to McCarthy Theroux's communication department, and when referred to a lawyer, quote, McCarthy Theroux's policy is never to comment on client matters or comment on whether we acted for an organization or not, Senior Communication Manager Ali Adams said. So it's like, oh, I'd love to talk to the press. Talk to my lawyer. They'll give you my comment. And the lawyer says, yeah, we don't comment on that. I scroll down a little bit. Mr. Charest's consulting duties for Huawei appear to put him at odds with the current policies of the Conservative Party, which has urged the Trudeau government to ban Huawei from selling 5G gear to Canadian telecoms, as other members of the Five Eyes Intelligence Partnership have done. The United States and Australia have blocked Huawei from 5G networks, and New Zealand rejected one proposal to build a 5G network with Huawei gear. Britain and Canada have yet to decide. Mr. Charest has publicly criticized the Trump administration over its request for the extradition of Ms. Meng on charges of fraud relating to violations of U.S. sanctions against Iran. Yeah, it keeps coming up, right? Back to this. On a business and trade panel hosted by the Empire Club in Toronto on November 5th, Mr. Charest said, it is important for Canada to seek closer ties with fast-rising China. Quote, our policy towards China has been hijacked by Donald Trump, Mr. Charest said. We should not be kowtowing to another government with regard to our relationship with China. And I scroll down a little bit. I'll just read this. Mr. Charest added that Canada's global image suffered when it arrested Ms. Meng, especially after President Donald Trump announced in late 2018 that he was open to using the case as a bargaining chip in trade negotiations with China. Quote, for us to be involved in an extradition case where Donald Trump tweets days later, I am ready to drop the charges if I get a trade deal with China. You know, in the rest of the world, it doesn't make Canada look very good, Mr. Charest said. That's not the place where we want to be. The former premier acknowledged during his remarks that, quote, he had clients in China. Mr. Charest was joined on the panel by former Conservative Cabinet Minister Peter MacKay, who is reported to be considering a bid for the Conservative leadership. Mr. MacKay responded to Mr. Charest's criticism of the United States by saying, quote, I'm picking a democracy every time when it comes to how we align ourselves, especially when our interests converge in our own backyard. And here is the CBC reporting that Charest is looking at the leadership. And it's actually talking about both Charest and Peter MacKay. Sorry, I don't know why it's jumping around. Peter MacKay, yeah. So both of them. And this article is basically saying that they'll both be vying for the same funding from the same people. So they'll both be, to use their metaphor, fishing in the same pond for donors and voters, right? Like it's the same group of people they appeal to. So, and who knows? That could be correct, or it could be just editorialization for the sake of the CBC. Interesting times, everyone. Stay tuned. We'll see what happens next, right? Twists and turns all day, every day, it seems, in Justin Trudeau's Canada. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. I've got some interesting news. I started a new site, and I think I'll introduce it tomorrow. I don't think it's quite ready yet. It's not quite finished, but kind of cool. And but you can see the link if you go to CanadaPoly.com. Go to the forums. And I think that's about it. So have a wonderful, wonderful